Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Apostolic Witness podcast. Today we have Shelly Wilson, and we're going to be talking about worship leading, which I think she is like the prime example of being a worship leader, and it's incredible to watch her do it. This is both a subject that David and I are very passionate about. We're both worship leaders, and so to have her sit down with us and give us some pointers,
Yeah.
how to deal with situations, how to just be
So,
good. We're excited to have her. Can you tell us a little about yourself and how you became a part of the worship ministry?
yeah, sure. But first of all, thank you guys for having me. I definitely don't feel qualified to do this. I just love God and I love to worship, and it kind of just happened. So I am not an expert by any means, but thank you guys for having me. And I'm your guys' biggest fans. Like, you're both amazing, so amazing at
Thanks.
everything you do. Amazing singers, musicians, worship leaders. I always look forward to hearing you guys. Like, when I see you anywhere, I'm like, yes, they're leading. It's going to be great. So I'm your fan too. And I love seeing the younger generation, especially females, rise up and be able to do this, because I feel like for a little while, it was like, oh, if you're a female, you can't be a worship leader. You're just going to stand behind and the guys are going to like do it. But
Right.
now I feel like it's just changing, and I'm so excited about the future of worship leading and worship departments for churches.
Right.
But
That's awesome.
so yeah, my name is Shelly, and I have been married to my wonderful husband Josh for 18 years. We just celebrated that Monday,
Wow.
Wow.
and
Congratulations.
thanks. We were riding in the car, and I was like, "Wow, we've been married 18 years," and that's like what old people say. I feel like old people say, yeah, I've been married 18, 20 years. And I guess it just crept up on us. Like, what is going on? It's crazy. But we have two kids, Levi and Kennedy, who are 6 and 11, and they keep us young but tired.
Yeah.
So it's fun. And I kind of got into worship and worship leading. I always say that God saved me, and the church and worship kept me.
Mhm.
The church was my family. My parents did not attend church. They unfortunately weren't even living the best of lifestyles. But my grandmother did go to church, and she brought me and she introduced me to this beautiful gospel. And from there, my love for God just grew. And my being introduced to music, I kind of found an outlet to where I just felt safe and I felt connected to God in a deeper way. And I just fell in love with Him and with music and with worship. And it just kind of happened naturally.
Right.
And like I said, it kept me, at home when I was having a bad day, or maybe there was craziness going on in the house or something. I would just go in my room. I would just turn on my worship music, and it was just me and the Lord. And so that's kind of how I came into it. And God just opened the doors for me. And I'm just eternally grateful for all of the opportunities that He's given me and the path that He's led me down. It's all because of Him.
That's awesome. I was listening to one preacher talk about the other day who's talking about the importance of what you listen to and surrounding yourself with the right music. And he said, because music is the one thing that cuts through and goes straight to the heart, goes straight to the
Yes.
person. No words have to be spoken. That's why people can cry at an orchestra. It's all about the power of music. And so that's so
Right.
true about surrounding yourself with the right music. So getting right into the interview part is, we think obviously you're one of our favorites. We when we were talking about discussing this topic, we're like, it's Shelly, duh.
There
I mean,
wasn't any
Aw.
other choice,
there's
in
no
my
other choice.
opinion.
Yeah, come on now.
Sorry to
nice.
all the other worship
Yeah,
leaders,
it's Shelly
all
or
of my
bust.
family.
Yeah, come
Y'all
on
are
now.
immaculate.
You guys are so sweet.
So in a time, with current culture and everything, it seems like so many people are focusing more on the talent on the platform. How do you push for focusing on anointing over talent?
Well, I would say that really starts at the head, as with everything else. It starts with your leadership. And the leadership of your pastor and then the leadership within your team. If you're a worship leader, but you're not like the leader of your department, I still think it's possible to keep that line, maintain that line, develop that line, even if they don't. But it definitely makes it easier if you and your leadership are aligned with the same ideas, the same goals. Because really, you have to be prayerful. You have to be a person of the word, because if not, it's really easy to like get off balance a little bit. And you have to be spiritually minded, because when we do lean one way or another, God's spirit kind of nudges us back and like, hey, wait a minute, it's not about this, it's about me.
Right.
And so I think it's so important that as a worship leader, as a team member, that we stay prayerful, we stay in the word of God, we stay spiritually minded so our motives could be right. Now, you can have talented people who are maybe, focused on being great and not necessarily being anointed,
Right.
and they can be realigned. I don't think, like all hope is lost,
Right.
but we have to teach them. And that's actually something that God has been dealing with me about. As a leader, sometimes we can get frustrated or aggravated that people don't do what we want, or maybe they're not operating the way that we would like, or things aren't even happening at all. And we're like, okay, well, forget it. I'll just do it, or I'll just work around this. I'm not going to address it because it's just not that it's not worth it, but it's just easier not to.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Lord has been dealing with me about that a little bit. Like, how are they going to know if we don't talk to them about it? In 2 Timothy 2:24, it says, a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone, be able to teach, and be patient with difficult people. So, Lord help me. So I am like really trying to practice in my life, because somebody had to take some time with me and say, hey, maybe don't do this, or maybe do that. And how are they going to know if we don't talk to them, if I don't say, hey, you're a great singer, like you're awesome, I'm so proud of you, you clearly spend a lot of time working on your gift, but I really want to see you in a Bible study. I really want to see you in the prayer room, or how about you do this Bible study with me, come to ladies Bible study with me, get involved in a young adults Bible study. Like, just try to teach them and kind of push them gently into a deeper relationship with God. And I would also say, if I have somebody that is maybe their focus is a little off, I would not give them as many opportunities until I start to see that change. And, that has happened before. I'm like, okay, this person is maybe their priorities are a little off. So we're going to take a step back until we can get that realigned.
Yeah.
And allow that person to correct it, or to at least enter into a process where they can get realigned, or they can learn, or they can grow. Because some people just don't know. They grow up and they're like, I'm supposed to be a great singer, and that's what it's about.
Right.
If I'm a great singer, the doors will open. When actually, if you have a great relationship with God, He is going to open the right doors. Because sometimes we spend so much time working on our gift and not our character, and not our relationship with God, and not our integrity, that our gift will take us to a place that our character cannot keep us. And then we get prideful, and other things start to creep in, and we don't have boundaries. And then we enter into a lane of entertainment. And then when you enter there, you have to be better. It's not about being more anointed or having more of God. You've got to be better, because there's somebody else in the entertainment industry who's better than you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then your focus becomes all about me and what I'm doing and how good I am, besides about Him. So I would say the way that we do that is really just being prayerful, being in the Word of God, being spiritually minded, and surrounding yourself with people who are also like that. Because if we surround ourselves with people who are also entertainment minded, we're going to slip into that lane a little bit. I remember when I was 17 or 18. I grew up in Louisiana, and I was asked to sing a special. I don't even know if it was like before service or after service. I don't even know. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like a big deal. I'm super excited. And I did it. And I was like, this is kind of entertainment. Like, these people are just watching me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I vowed, like, I'm not doing that ever again.
Mm.
Like, for me, it was worship, but the setting was really not conducive to that. So
Right.
for me, like, that was a line.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this has to be for everybody, but for me, I'm really careful if I do any specials, because I'm like, what's this promoting?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying specials are bad, and specials in a service can be really moving. This wasn't in a service. This was like a pre-serve. I don't know what it was. I just remember being there thinking, I'm never doing this again.
Well,
Like,
that's your
this,
self-convictions. I mean, you know
yeah,
what can take you to the next
Mm-hmm.
level of what takes you away from God. And I think that's one thing that you have to keep in mind of, are what are those points in your worship ministry that take you away from God, whether that
yes,
be you having all the solos or you sitting up in the front or whatever it is. You have to realign yourself. And with you were talking about teaching, those people that might have that mindset.
yeah,
But that's, you are discipling those people. Sometimes a lot of people, whenever they're having a hard time, they take them off the platform, and it's by case to case. I understand that completely.
right,
But there's some people that, like you said, for you, your worship ministry was your lifeline to God.
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
sometimes if you take away that lifeline and what may be having them for a little bit, then they can fall away even further away from God. In which
absolutely.
we had talked about kind of that worship and entertainment. Do you have anything more, like how to maintain that direct line between that and an everyday worship setting?
Well, and I think within a team, it also comes down to who is on your team. Do you have entertainers or do you have worshipers? And then, so I go back to what I said, like, I don't think that everyone who maybe they're, we're all worshipers, but sometimes our priorities are a little off,
Right.
or like, I am a worshiper. I mean, we were created to be a worshiper. Also, like, I'm going to be a really good singer. Like, I'm just going to kill it every time. That's my goal.
Right.
I wish I could say, like, I'm actually the opposite. I'm like, Lord, let this gift kick in, because I'm on the struggle bus. So I wish maybe I had a little bit more of that. But so if you have somebody like that, but if they have a teachable spirit, you're like, okay, I'm gonna work with you. And that is something that I'm also so passionate about, is that we are in the people business.
Right.
We are in the people business. It's him, it's them, and it's your team. So it's all about God, and it's all about the people that you're serving on your team and in the congregation.
Yeah.
So we, like you said, take it case by case. If they have a teachable spirit, I'm going to say, okay, I see this, I see that, and I'm going to help you. Like, I want to help you work on getting some things realigned, because I want to develop. I want to work myself out of a job and have somebody come up behind me that's going to just take it to the next level. And so I think also with your team is instilling in them, not just personally, but hey, we're going to be a team of prayer. We're going to be a team, like, you don't just serve on this platform. Where else are you serving? You need to serve somewhere else within the church.
Right.
And that is also huge. That will help them say, it's not just about me. It's not just about what I'm doing here and people seeing me. Like, you're working in kids ministry, or you're a greeter when you're not singing. That's another thing that kind of helps balance that out just a little bit.
Well, and Dad has said before, talent can take you so far. Like you were saying, talent can take you, to a certain point. But if it's between choosing somebody who's talented and somebody who has a passion for God, is always there, is faithful, and has a teachable spirit, probably going to
Yes.
choose that person just because it's
Yes.
easier to deal with. That they're going to be better for the band, they're going to be better for worship, they're just going to bring a better spirit.
Yes.
So speaking in that kind of vein of you putting your focus in the right spot, do you, as a person, do you focus on what's going on in the room, how the people are responding when they're worshiping, or do you solely have your focus on God? Because I know some people, they're trying to read the room, trying to see what's going on, how are they
Yes.
responding. I know if you're me,
Right.
I'm saying, hey, why aren't they worshiping? I almost want to call them out
It's like, do
sometimes.
y'all not love God? My
Yeah.
goodness, y'all need to step it up.
Exactly. That's a tough question. And the right answer is I focus on God solely the whole
Right,
time.
100%. I've never focused on anything else.
Actually, this is so bad, but if I'm not singing, I'm kind of stressed out because I can't see who's here from an attendance standpoint. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it was so, yeah, because I'm like looking like, oh, so and so's not here. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to text her. Like I should be really focused on God, but sometimes, like I said, we're in the people business, and it's hard to kind of cut that off a little bit.
Right.
But I would say, truthfully, a good worship leader focuses on both.
Mm,
I do not care who you are. You are focusing on both.
right.
And I think that's the way it should be. Okay, in Matthew, Jesus is teaching. There is miracles, signs, wonders, all this awesome stuff happening for days. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, these people are hungry. We've got to feed them or they're going to faint.
Right.
So if Jesus is doing miracles, operating in his gift, he is the gift, but he is operating, and he stops and he's feeling out the crowd. He's like the kids say, he's like feeling the vibe.
Right.
And it's like they're hungry, and he stops like, all right, we've got to feed them. What is my responsibility? Am I supposed to just keep operating in my gift and not read the room?
Right.
I think there's room, and it's wise to do both. Our focus, our goal is to put the focus on him. However, this is one reason. If someone is listening to this and they're a sound man, I am so sorry. Please do not hate me. But this is one reason why I can't put in 2 in-ears.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like, and I'm kind of new at that anyway, but I feel like I don't get a good read on the room when I've got both in, and I don't have a good read on my team.
100%.
And that's so important to me. I am all about flow. Flow. So if I don't feel like I have a good feel on the room and my team, it's almost a distraction to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Because leading worship should be an overflow of our personal worship time. However, it is not our personal worship moment.
Right.
We are there to put the focus on him for the people that we're serving, the congregation at the time. I often relate it to a server at a restaurant. Like when we come to a restaurant and we sit down at a table, we're super distracted. We got our phones, we're talking to people, we're trying to get kids in a seat. The server comes and points our attention to the menu, which is why we're there. It's like, you're here to eat, but we kind of forget that because we're like, oh, what's going on, who's sitting where, we're catching up. And that's kind of church. We get there, we know why we're there, but getting to that spot, we're kind of distracted. Right. And so as a worship leader, we've got to point people to why they're there, kind of remind them like, hey, it's about him today.
Well, it's like one of those things when, as a worship leader, or if whoever's starting the service, they always have to tell people to stand up. And if you don't tell them to stand up, they won't stand up. And I'm like, we do this every single service.
Right.
People need to be told what to do. I mean, or led, not told. Worship God.
Yeah, led, yes.
Well, and another thing is, one thing that I had to learn whenever I became a worship leader here at Medora was I had to, like you were saying, you have to read the room. You have to read what was going on. I can't tell you how many midweek services I would lead, like starting out, and like get off the stage mad because I was like, why aren't they responding? Why did nobody worship? They just stared at me, not thinking
Yeah.
all these people just got home from their jobs. Some of them never even got home. Some of them have been going since 5, 6 in the morning. And so if
Yeah.
I realize, you know what, they're probably not feeling like running the aisles tonight. They're probably not feeling like, hooping,
Right.
hollering, swinging from the chandeliers. So this is a
Exactly.
this is a super carnal question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you push through a dead room? Like the room is just flat. How do you guide that situation?
Carefully. Carefully. Because you're so right. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've quit in my head. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like walking. I've wanted to like nosedive off of a platform because
Yep.
it's like so. We can say, and this is also carnal. We can say, you know what? We're getting up there, and we're just gonna let the Spirit of God move, and it's all up to Him, whatever He wants to do. And
Right.
yes, that is right. But in our minds, we have an expectation of what their response is going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, because I do think you should be planning and all of those things. But if we don't get that response, we're like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
first, it's like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? We're trying to fix it. And we have to remind ourselves, hey, I'm not here for responses. I'm here for Him. I
Mm-hmm.
can't take this personal. And like you said, that's so wise. Like, these individuals have been working, or we don't know what they're going through. Or sometimes it's like, you know what? The word is going to do the work.
Right.
Mhm.
We've created the atmosphere. We've set the table for Jesus to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And now the word is going to get the response. The word is going to do its work. But if it does seem like a dead crowd, I'll tell you, I like my least favorite services are Christmas and Easter.
Mhm.
Absolutely. 100%. It's the worst.
Well, because that's like whenever you have all of the guests and everybody's thinking of other things, and you think that should honestly be our best service ever
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
we do have all these people. If there's any time that people out of church come to church, it's for Christmas and Easter. And I think us as individuals, we're like, oh, we're just going to push through this because we have all these people here. But that should be
Yeah.
the time that we're just really wanting a move from God to have all these people.
Yes. We started a few years ago. I was like, I am done with having like some super special, amazing set
Mm-hmm.
in my eyes, like
Right.
a bunch of new songs or whatever, because new songs tend to make even the churchiest of church people a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like, we're doing stuff that we know,
Mm-hmm.
because your guests are already going to be a tad bit uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And if your core people are uncomfortable, it's just a recipe for not what you want.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say disaster, but it's not the goal. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to just do really familiar stuff that people are accustomed to, that they will worship to, because worship is contagious, at least
Right.
a little bit. But so in those I hate to say that Easter and Christmas are dead. They're not dead. They just are a little
They're
stiff.
stiff. That's a good
Yeah.
They're
word.
they're a little stiff. And so in those moments, or in just not an event or a big Sunday, it's just like kind of a stiff or maybe dead crowd. Personally, what I do is, when I feel like I've done all that I can, I'm like, okay, we've given God the space. We've created these moments and nothing happened. And I push, and then still, and in the spirit, you can feel usually like
Absolutely.
something's off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I go back to, like, we've got to be people of relationship with him. We've
Mm-hmm.
got to be people of the word, people who have a prayer life, because you can't really teach how to be discerning. It just kind of happens, through relationship with God. And you can usually feel like this, I'm hitting something. I'm hitting
Right.
something. So I'm going to just kind of close this down. I mean, I'm not just going to stop everything, but like,
Right.
we're just going to move on with service,
Yeah.
we're just going to move on, because we do not want to be shaming people, guilting people, or verbally beating people up
Right.
to worship. I mean, and honestly, like, God doesn't want that. If he did, he would make us all worship him, but he gives us the choice. Same way with our kids. Like, we don't want to say, hey, you better tell me you love me today.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to come and like give us a hug and say, hey, I love you, without being made to do it. And so there are times it's just not going to happen. And,
Right.
just move on and let the word do its work, and just make up in your mind, you know what? Next, reflect. I always say it's hard, but to reflect and say, okay, could I have done anything different?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did I put the proper planning? Was this rushed? Maybe even go back and listen to your live stream or watch and like, did I miss something? Was there a moment that I didn't take? Did something happen? If not, just make up your mind, you know what? Next week it's going to be better.
Right.
Try not to sit there, because it will eat you alive. But I would just say, if you've powered through and still nothing is happening, you know what? Just close it down. Give yourself a day or two,
Right.
and then go back and watch and see if there's anything maybe you could have done different. Not that day. Wait a little while.
Give it some
Another,
time.
get your emotions down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get out
exactly.
your depression.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, I can't. This will send me, and you have to know yourself, because
Right.
it will put you like in a downward spiral where we're like, I'm not doing this again. Lord, you better raise somebody up. I'm done.
Right.
I'm so done. So just know, and sometimes things could have even went well, and I'm like, I was not where I needed to be, but I can't go back and watch that, because
Right.
it's not going to be good,
Oh,
good
yeah.
for me.
Trust me.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I have led worship, and it's always been like on those weeknights or something, and you're just done, and then you get off the platform and you're like, what did we even sing? You're like,
Yeah, like,
I don't even remember anything.
Like, what just happened?
Yeah.
I tell people, like, you aren't really a worship leader until you've had to sing a cappella.
Mm-hmm.
You've had to stop in the middle of a worship set because the track is something's crazy's happened with it.
Yep.
Or the drummer is off, or somebody's in the wrong key. Until you've had to do those things, and like, praise the Lord, we're going to start this over.
Yeah. We're going to start back from the top.
You're going to start from the top.
There was one time we were singing, what song was it? Psalms
23.
Psalms 23. Oh my goodness.
That song has the worst timing. It's like an eternity between each word.
Yes.
And they were singing it so slow. I mean,
I remember.
So incredibly slow.
It took us till the bridge till they got right on time.
And everyone was looking. I'm like, just stop the song.
Yeah.
And just start over. At that point, you just need to start over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so bad. And it's in those moments whenever you know it's bad and everyone knows it's bad, everyone's looking at you, it's so much easier just to stop and just be like, let's just start over, rather than trying to push through it, because no one's getting to Jesus.
Let's shoot this thing in the head and get it over with.
Yeah, like everyone knows like something is off. This year, no, when was that? And I think it was October. We had the brother and sister Carpenter in for anniversary service. I don't know, something, and it's like, oh, brother and sister Carpenter's here. This is such a special time. We're so excited, blah, 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 whatever. And so we start like the second song, and thankfully I had one ear out. And I am like Jill, who I call the lady in the track who's giving direction, like sign, or you're saying chorus, bridge. She's in the house as well. and everyone hears her. Like, she's real loud. And I was like, I think I hear Jill. And then like next, I was like, she's there. And so I just turned around, I stopped. I was like, well, guys, Jill wanted to be at church with you today. I was like, we hear her all the time in our ears. And she was just like really feeling left out that you didn't hear her. So that is Jill. And now we're going to start again and put her back in her place.
Mm-hmm.
And like, then everybody started laughing and we like
Right.
started. Thankfully, it was a fast song. So we weren't like, no, raise your hands and just worship and put your mind on the, it was like fast songs. You're like,
Right.
all right, let's get back in. But keeping her in there, or me turning around to our track guy and being like, it would just been more
Bigger
distracting.
distraction. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like, all right, let's just do a reset. Okay,
Right.
let's just do a reset.
I remember one time at NYC or GMC, I can't remember which one, and they started, and it was like 1, 2, 3 intro, and I was like, oh man, I just felt bad
like,
for everybody involved.
Well, you feel bad, but then you're also like, thank you, Jesus. I'm not the
know,
only
right?
one that this happens to.
I know.
Like, this is a big
And it's
production, and they do it too.
Right.
Thank the Lord.
Yes. And you're not like, oh, I am, I'm so glad you messed up. But we're like, no, we are fellowshipping in your suffering because
Right.
we're there.
We've
We've
been
been
right
there
there.
with you.
Everybody's done it.
Oh, the worst one. So usually if I'm not leading worship, I'll play guitar, but like I'll have the band mic. And so I'll be telling people, we have 3 or 4, and one of them is my grandfather. Horrible clappers. Horrible. But they're so loud that they'll put everybody else off. And so like, say it's like a slow song or it's in a weird timing. And so like, I'll have to literally say, drummer, you have to give us a hi-hat or something. Do something, because they're throwing everybody off. They're throwing the
Yes.
whole church off.
Mm-hmm. And then when everybody's off, and of course if you don't wear in-ears, then you can't, it's so hard to get on because everybody's off, and the only person who is on is the drummer, and it's just so confusing, and it's just crazy, and it's bad.
Yeah.
You're like trying to sing like with the drummer, but like you hear other people.
Mm-hmm.
Our wonderful pastor, who is also a musician, so it's kind of confusing. His timing is not the best, and
It's
he
challenging.
stands really. It is, and he's like stands really close to us, and sometimes he'll just like clap or start singing, and we'll be like, I'll look at him like. Thankfully, daughter Chloe sings now, and so she can like really just boss him around because that's her dad. But me,
Right.
I'm like trying to be really kind, but I'm like, you have to stop. Like
You're ruining everything.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. So you kind of talking about it a little bit, what your flow is and everything. So how do you prepare yourself like before a Sunday? So obviously Sunday's our big day. It's a lot of preparation, choosing songs, whatever it looks like. What does that look like for you?
For me, I work with our band leader, and like some weeks he picks the songs, some weeks I pick the songs, and just here at FAC, I try not to have one person lead everything. I usually, actually, we do 3 songs, and sometimes we'll do 4, but I try to have a different person lead a song, so it's not just me or not just Macy or whoever. And I do think that there's challenges in that, but there's also a lot of benefits in it as
Right.
well. And one benefit is not, hey, it's all about me. But anyway, not going to go back there. However, for me personally, what I do, I really try to practice the 3 P's, which are prayer, planning, and preparation. So obviously you want to be prayerful. Sometimes we pick our songs, sometimes we don't when we're leading, but I do try to be prayerful whether I've picked the songs or not, and ask God, like, hey, what are you wanting to do in this song, or what song are you wanting us to sing, and just be mindful of maybe like what he's wanting to speak in that song. Also listening to it, making sure I know that song like inside and out.
Right.
And where I'm not depending on Jill telling me where we're going, because she can be wrong. She can cut out. You may not have a Jill. I did this 18 years without a Jill. And I also don't want to have to always depend on signs.
Right.
I want to, because if you're like depending on signs or you're constantly counting, it's really hard to get into a flow and just be sensitive to what God's doing or speaking. So I really want to know a song, I mean, down to chord progressions, because sometimes you're like, all right, well, she said this verse, but that chord progression is taking us to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really know a song inside and out, then you don't have to be so stressed out, and make sure you stay like very aware of signs or what she's saying. And also it gives you, if you're in a position where you're having to pay attention to other people's parts, you're like, oh, I may need to jump on alto just for a minute to get people back on or something like that. It just gives you so much flexibility, and you don't have to stress out like, I don't know this song that well, because you've put in the time, you put in the work, and you do know it. And also I would say, that's kind of goes the prep and the planning. And in the planning is, where can you go? Where can you go in this song? If it takes off, where can I go?
Right.
And I tell that to, our team here. We're all about flow. And I will say, when you hear a song for the first time, you should think about, what would work well with this song? What could we flow into from here? Because we want to be prepared for a moment, and we're going to plan for that, whether it happens or not.
Right.
But I want to kind of have a plan in place in case God's like, okay, it's going to start here and we're going to flow into something else. I want to be prepared for that. And something that I've been trying to do personally, and just recently, I feel like God's kind of calling me to, is incorporating more of his word into leading worship. And so what I'm trying to do is, one song from our set each week, I'm trying to memorize a scripture to go with that song. Now, I may not even use it, and it may not even be for a song that I'm leading, but I'm just trying to get more of God's word inside of me. And so that's a challenge that I'm doing personally. But that is something that you can plan for, is like, man, when I hear this song and listen to this, there's a space right here. I could really, this could be a moment for me to minister the word, like to speak this scripture, to speak this promise to somebody. Now, it might not happen. You may not feel it, but you're prepared just in case it does. So that's kind of my personal approach when I go into leading worship, is just making sure I'm prayerful, I'm prepared, and I've planned for what could happen and what's going to happen.
And you kind of talked about it a little bit, but whenever, I know it's kind of hard for me personally, whenever you've already done your set list, and then you're going in, or even in the middle of your set list, and you're going into that spontaneous worship of maybe going into another song, or maybe doing something over, or doing something completely different. How do you deal with that? Not necessarily just spiritually, but how do you convey that to your team, that this is where we're going now?
So this is kind of tricky, because you have to have a team that is able to flow.
Right.
Now, in that, it makes it challenging if you're trying to develop people. So I would say, always have, if it's possible, and I know it's not always possible, but if possible, to have one person on each part who you don't have to worry about. If you say, hey, from what did we see, goodness of God, I want, after that, and you're like thanking God for families, and you're just really feeling, okay, we're really about to enter into a season of like prayer for families, and you're thinking of the blessing. You need to have people on your team that you're not going to have to reach over and teach those parts to.
Right.
Like, if it's possible to have somebody on each part that that is confident that they can find their part without you having to teach it to them.
Right.
Or maybe it's just, you start in unison and give them a moment in their head to find that part, or if you just have to stay in unison. But having a team that is able to flow with you really does make all the difference, because it can be distracting if they're all over the place. So you have to kind of be mindful of what your team can do and what they're comfortable with. That's why a little bit of planning is helpful. And however, we don't always know that that's going to happen. It's spontaneous, like you said. And in those moments, and when you're maybe unsure, as a vocalist, as the worship leader, you can do it obviously by yourself and can give them time to catch on and start in unison. But that's also something that you can practice.
Right.
So, you know what, we're going to have a practice tonight, and just go from one chorus to the next. Like, especially if you do some old school, "Here I Am to Worship," that can go into all kinds of things. "Lord, I
Right.
give you my heart." Start with something they know really well and just start working on flow, because also your musicians have to be able to flow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to stay in that vein as well. And you're not, I don't feel like that would be saying, okay, well, we're going to practice flow, and it's really not going to be worship. We're trying to make sense. No, even in your practice, the presence of God is there. And we've had practices where it did just take off in a practice. And when you create that, and as a team outside of just church services, they're comfortable with that.
Right.
And your team kind of has to be comfortable with it in order for it to be as effective as maybe you want. And you don't always get it right. There will be times where I know one time I gave a flip sign, and they tried their hardest, and it was not a flip. We
Right.
should not have flipped, but they followed me. They went right there with me, and I was like, bring it down.
Let's go back.
I'm so used to every single song having a flip. Usually by like the second time we're doing the bridge, I'm just like this. And sometimes I'm like, I believe you could do it. I think you could.
Yeah. Belt it out.
Just belt it out.
Yeah. Don't be lazy.
Right.
Get up there.
Get up there. My goodness.
Yeah. And that is another thing, a great thing about a team, is that I lean so heavily on them, and I can like look at them and I know that's not a good idea. Like they're letting me know. And I think that is what it all comes down to, is building a relationship with your team.
Right.
Because there are some things that like can only be established through relationship, and that's a trust in each other, a trust in them following me. Sometimes they may not feel it, but it's like they trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or I trust them. If they're like, "Hey, we can't do this," I'm like, "You're right. I know that you're not just being lazy. I know that we can't do that," or maybe I'm off, or I can look at them and say, "Take it," and I trust that they can take it, like they can take it to the next level.
Right.
But we try to do life together. It's not just a Sunday thing. It's a Monday, it's a Tuesday. Like we have a team group text, and we're like sending each other funny memes and praying for each other and stuff like that. So I feel like flowing in the Spirit is a little bit more achievable with a team when you have a relationship with them.
Absolutely.
Because you're kind of all in there together.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. For our church especially, there was, let's just say, some seasoned worship leaders and saints. It was like my mom was the piano player. We had an older guy playing the drums and everything. And it literally took one of the elders in our church looking at my mom and say, "Don't you think it's time for the younger generation to step in and start doing it?" And like that team, like it was me, a few other people, like that's the core. And so just like how you were saying, it's just it's the type of people that you could just like look at and they already know what you're thinking. They already know, oh yeah, he's going to want to go to, worship leader, they're going to go to that bridge one more time. They're going to cut in that bridge, and then and so that's so important of just building that team mentality, because I think sometimes we get that misconception that just because we're called the worship leader that we literally have to lead everything. Not necessarily. I think sometimes we could just kind of guide just a little bit, just kind of nudge them in the right direction. That just comes with a spirit-led team.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
I know David was talking just about having that relationship with people and being built up with people, but also coming from someone that went into a different church after we got married. It is hard you don't know what other people are thinking if you haven't grown up with them. Like me, my sister, my brother, we always used to sing together, and we can literally sing anything if that you would tell us, and we can do it all. But going into somewhere where you don't know what people are thinking is so hard, and you have to learn that, and it's very handy whenever you do start to learn those signs and building that relationship with people.
Right. And it's so, because you get to the point, like he said, where you can look at their face and you're like, okay, this is what they're thinking, or whatever. And it's so helpful because we can't really communicate with each other while you're singing a song or while you're leading.
Right. I'll never forget one time. It was like one of the first times they've asked me to play for camp or some kind of special service, and the worship leader was giving us some kind of signal, and I'm used to what we have at church, and I had never seen that signal before. I was just like a deer in headlights. I was like, I'll find out, I guess. Wherever we're going, that's where we're going.
Yes. Well, that's anytime I go somewhere new, I'm like, okay, guys, what are your signs?
Right.
Because everyone kind of gives different signs, and it's so funny. Like some people will like do like this, like I don't know, for like the bridge, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that is not what I do.
Right.
So I'm like,
yeah, we did this for bridge because it's a B, and they do this. I'm like, how does this?
Because it looks like a little bridge.
That is not what that
looks like
is.
a little bridge. That's exactly right.
Is that really why they do that?
No,
it looks
is not.
That's what I believe.
That cannot be, because why?
It's a sturdy little bridge.
I am so not walking on that bridge.
Yeah,
I really like my bridges. Actually, I like this where there's like 4 planks there, so it's nice and wide.
So you guys do this too?
We actually do 3.
Oh,
we do 3 because sometimes there's that second bridge, and that's 4.
Oh, wow, that's handy. They used to go like this.
Yeah. It's just,
and it was,
go to that vamp.
It was everything. No, now it's vamp, but it was like go back to the chorus. It was go back to like the verse, whatever that song was, whatever it was next. Yeah. That's what that meant. And I'm over here like, I have no idea what's the next thing. You're just going like this. I need like a bridge, or now I need a bridge or a verse or something.
Right.
We need to like start. You know how they have those memes? It's like the different types of worshipers.
Yeah.
We need to start one that's like, different type of what are your signals? Signs? Mm-hmm. What are your hand signals? That would be really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, the worst that kills me, especially like when I'm playing, is that the worship leader will do something, because like this is for us as unison, and so then there's bridge. Well, sometimes they can't quite get their finger across, and so I'm like, you just unibridge. And so that's all I can think to do.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and so that's great. So, okay, I know we didn't really send you this question, but this is a question I had just to make sure that we're, somewhat normal. Do you look to see what musicians are playing, depending on what song you're going to choose?
Yes. Yes. I'm like, okay, who's going to hear this? But yes, it is.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I'm not alone.
Well, different people have different strengths.
Yeah.
And some people, that is not their strength.
Yep.
It's so true. And honestly, it's the same way with singers.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And our band leader, he will be like, okay, I really want to do this song. Okay, here, an example. No Reason to Fear.
Mm-hmm.
Great song. Not just anybody can sing that song.
Right.
Okay, that is not just for anybody. And so the lady who used to sing that song in our church, she like killed it. I mean, like, she's just bananas. And so she moved, and our music band leader was like, "Hey, we're gonna do this song." I was like, "No." He's like, "Why?" I was like, "Because just she's not here." He's like, "Well, she doesn't own the song." I was like, "Well, she kind of does."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's like, "Well, you can't just like have a song that just belongs to this person." Like, you kind of can. Like,
Whenever you had
nobody.
it perfect,
Yeah. When the song was perfected,
you can't fail it.
Yeah.
Well, I had to sing that song at camp one year, and let me tell you, I was not the person to sing that song. Whenever they asked me, I was like, I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was bad. It was very, very bad.
That's the one thing, getting married to Grace. It was a double-edged sword. I hated it at first, but then I really started to like it, because then I could just get off stage and like walk up to her sister or her brother and be like, "How was that?" And they could either be like, "Good," and that really meant you did good, or sometimes I'd walk off and they're like, "Yeah, well, that was not it."
You need someone to tell you when you're bad.
Yeah,
all right, I guess. I sang at WIC one year, and it was this one part of the song. I had hit that part every single time in practice. But then the second part, I never hit it. Never. Not once during practice. And so I was just so nervous about it. And so then I'm singing up there. And then I absolutely butchered the first part of the one that I hit every single time. And rather than just going through it, I just went, "Oh, Jesus," inside of the microphone. I was just like, there's just no, I was that bad.
Yeah, there was no saving that. It was
But
rough.
I did, the weird thing is I nailed the second part that I hadn't ever gotten, ever. And so it was just Jesus humbling me, I'm sure. And so I went back, and I was like, I know. And I had talked to some people, and I was like, "Man, that was bad." And they're like, "Oh, that was fine." And so then I talked to my brother, and I was like, "That was bad." He goes, "Yeah, I wish that I had that recorded so I could put it on Church Milk." I'm like, "Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the boost of confidence."
Honestly, oh my word.
So bad.
Well, as long as it's the second one that you hit, because then people will maybe not remember the first one.
No, like, it was all within the last 10 seconds. I mean, it was just, I did it in literally from just, oh, Jesus. It was so bad. I would much rather them know that I didn't mean to do that than them to think that I did that on purpose, in my personal opinion.
Because sometimes the vocal cords just really don't meet our own expectations.
No, they do like, give up. But that's me most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm literally praying every Sunday, "Lord, help our vocal cords reach the notes needed." Like, I literally pray that, like, in our team prayer, because that Sunday morning it is so rough. It's real rough up there sometimes, but you do have to be aware of what your musicians can play, because you don't. Oh my goodness, I get on a soapbox here. I don't want to, but I just do it well.
Right.
Do what you do well. Like, you don't have to do the newest stuff. Like, some of this new music that's coming out is so good, but it's bananas. Like, it is just, they're doing all these. Yeah, it really is. And it's really cool. But if you can't do that, it's okay. Do what you can do and kill it.
Right.
Yeah. Like, absolutely just kill it. And so if you're not comfortable playing gospel music, don't pick up a Todd Dulaney song.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, just stay right there with Elevation or whoever. Like, don't already put yourself at a disadvantage because this is outside of what you're. Now, yes, we should push ourselves, try to get better. I'm all about that. But kind of wait till you're there. So yes, there are, we do Nade Como Tu. Latin music is very different.
that samba feel there.
Yes, and not everyone can do that, and there's nothing wrong. I can't sing that song. I don't speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I sing it, like I don't do the solo. I do the other parts, barely. But I'm like not going to try that song, even though it's super great, because I'm going to butcher it.
Mm-hmm.
So know really what you're capable of. I actually was asked to sing a song recently, and I was like, no, thank you so much. I cannot do that. Like I really appreciate the opportunity, but
Mm-hmm.
like I am not that person.
Right.
And that is like I am not going to do that song justice, and there are a lot of people who can.
Right.
So
Yeah.
please give that to someone else. It has nothing to do with like me thinking I'm a diva. I just know my limitations.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. Like actually somebody did that song last year at this conference and they killed it. Like killed it. You need to ask them. Like
Right.
so I know your team, because honestly you're setting them up for failure and maybe
Right.
possibly embarrassment
Mm-hmm.
if you pick a song. And sometimes I will have somebody in mind. I'm like, oh, I would really like for them to lead this song, and I will say, hey, do you feel comfortable with this? And sometimes people say no,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to feel comfortable because I don't want them to feel like I am setting them up to fail.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know sometimes in myself, I'll look at, the band or the singers, and I'll just have to make up in my mind, well, I guess we're hitting that early 2000s elevation, I guess.
Everybody has
Yep.
their own genre.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yes.
much for
Yeah, thank you.
being on and sharing your wisdom about worship leading.
Aw,
I know we enjoyed it.
Mhm.
thank you so much. You guys are so fun.
Oh,
Oh,
thanks.
thanks.
So how can we get a hold of you? What is your social medias? Anything that people can get a hold of you?
I don't know. I guess my Instagram is the Wilsons4. I am so old. I do not even know this stuff. Oh my word.
I can find
Um,
it.
yeah, I think it's the Wilsons4. Also, obviously, just search my name, Shelly Wilson, on Facebook, or you can email me at Shelly, SHELLYM02 @ AOL. Yes, I'm so old school. I've had that for like 100
AOL.
years. I
Wow.
know. I just got a Gmail account, so I'm like really. I'm not
Man,
giving that out
stepping it up.
just yet.
Keeping it up.
I'm not giving that one out just yet because I have so much. I'm like trying to keep that for just church
Mhm.
like
Right.
stuff. But yeah, so that's where you can reach me, and also almost everyone has Josh's number, so just text Josh and he will let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being a part of the Apostolic Witness podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.